What's up, guys? Fooch from Fooch TV here today. Now, as you can tell by the lack of background and the no editing in this video, I wasn't planning on doing this video initially. However, similar with Sam Ochidi, I decided to do a reaction video and my thoughts given on the 영국남자 incident, which is kind of blowing up now here in Korea. I'm actually going to be doing this video in one take, so let's just see how this goes. So, as some people may or may not know already, 영국남자, aka Josh, and I'm going to be referring to him as Josh from here on out. Josh and his wife Gabie are now the victims of a somewhat of a witch hunt. Somewhat, they actually have something to be blamed for, and that's I kind of want to discuss the three things that they're getting blamed for, attacked for. Now, need some water real quick. Hold on just 1 second. That's coupon water right there. Very delicious. Now, I want to start this video off by saying that I have no affiliation with 영국남자. I've never met him. I'll probably never meet him. I don't really watch his content. I'm not really a fan of that. Oh, look at me, I'm a foreigner eating Korean food. Or look at these foreigners eating Korean food. I really can't be bothered. I mean, I respect what he did. He has over 1 million followers or 1 million subscribers, having 193 subscribers as of right now. Maybe after this video it will drop. Maybe it'll increase. I don't know. I'm very proud of that, but I can't imagine having over 1 million subscribers. His wife also has 1 million subscribers as well, which is, very impressive. I personally don't like that kind of content that they make. And for someone that loves Korea as much as he claims to have, making all this content, for me, it's kind of like, ew, if you like Korea, love Korea that much, why did you leave? I mean, we also saw the same thing with the other popular YouTuber, what's his name? Oliver Sam. He also, this big, I love Korea, I'm speaking Korean wife, jindoke, everything. Left Korea to go back to the US. And it's kind of like, I feel like if you're going to be making money on YouTube with a whole bunch of Korean viewers, you should be breathing the same toxic air that we're breathing. You should have to deal with the same $3 million boxes in the sky called homes that we have to deal with. And also public bathrooms not having soap. That last one's a little bit of a joke, but you can catch the video on that new video about soap, and that'll be at the end of the video. So or that could be right there as one of these cards that YouTube has. Anyway, so the three things that people are upset with Josh and his wife for. Number one, they were visiting Korea for a medical checkup or examination or surgery or procedure, whatever, for his wife. And when coming into Korea, you have to have a 2-week mandatory quarantine. Now, personally, I think two weeks is a little bit extreme. It was a quarantine that was set up back in March when we didn't know that much about the coronavirus. Yes, the coronavirus can, after contact, take up to 14 days for you to actually show symptoms. However, as people know by now, most of the symptoms happen between 3 and 7 days, usually between 3 and 5 days after contact. So I think that the 2 weeks is a little bit extreme, and having someone stay in quarantine for 2 weeks is a little bit crazy. And if you want to be technical, there have been cases of people not showing symptoms for up to 28 days. So why did they make the quarantine 2 weeks? I think it's a little bit out of date. But with that being said, it's regardless what I think about what's out of date or not. The fact is the law says you have to be in quarantine for 2 full weeks. Now, apparently during this time, Josh had planned a birthday party for his wife and invited guests, and they came over to the house, or they came to the apartment. They walked up near the door and they dropped the gifts off near the door, where the wife went out and came and picked them up. And in some instances, the wife had conversations with the friends while the friends were still in the hallway. Now, my initial reaction after seeing the video or seeing clips of the video was after this was all done, they filmed the video, they uploaded it. Apparently, it was only online for about 8 minutes before people started bashing it, so it was immediately taken down. But of course, people immediately downloaded it, and there are clips of that video online right now. I'm going to be posting those in the description below, so if you want to take a look at some of those clips from this video that everyone is attacking them for, the link is in the description below. So people are saying that this broke the quarantine. Now, it's kind of I don't know, because the quarantine says you are not allowed to leave the house for 2 weeks, and you're not allowed to invite guests to the house. However, technically the guests were invited, and they were in the building, but they weren't in the actual unit. The gifts were dropped off in front of the unit in which they were collected. Now, you know, this seems like a technicality where technically they didn't do anything wrong, and I feel like in the West, like the US or the UK or Australia, if they had these types of quarantine rules and somebody did something quite similar, people would find this amusing, that they were able to kind of find a loophole, find the technicalities of not breaking the actual rules, but still getting away with having this, you know, impromptu birthday party, surprise birthday party. However, Koreans are not exactly the same. See, some of the people in Korea have been taking this corona situation very seriously, partly because of the fear the government has created. You know, I heard a good quote: we should be concerned about the fear, but not consumed by the fear. However, some people have been completely consumed, going as far as, you know, they haven't left the house really in months. They may have gone to the office, but on the weekends they just stay at home, and they're not going out at all. Even now that, you know, there's like about 20 cases per day in Seoul and over 10 million people living in Seoul, you have a higher chance of getting hit by a car than actually getting the virus. And a lot of the people that have the virus are people actually coming in from, you know, overseas. So Koreans have had to endure a lot, even though if they didn't have to, they felt like they had to, because if they, you know, the scary part about getting the virus in Korea is not the virus itself, it's how everyone is going to blame you, even if you were being very cautious about it. You know, I read a story about someone who said that they were at home all the time. They rarely went out. One time they went to the convenience store. Even when paying, they would wipe down the cards. Anyway, by a stroke of bad luck, they got the virus and they got blamed by everyone, and it was just a whole terrible situation. So I personally don't want to get the virus, not because I'm worried per se about the virus itself, but because everyone's going to blame me and hate me more than they already do. Well, that's not going to be fun. So anyway, and also in Korea, there's this culture of I had to suffer, and if I had to suffer, that means you have to suffer too. So let's take a look at the office environment, for example. You know, you get a new job and your manager's a dick, and he or she treats you poorly. He yells at you. He makes you get the coffee. She makes you work overtime, and you would think, wow, my manager is a real piece of crap, and I really don't like them. So I think a healthy thought would be, you know what? When I become older and I become a manager, I am going to break the system, break the mold, and I am going to be someone that treats my employees very well. However, that doesn't happen because I suffer. The rest have to suffer, and when I get new people on my team and when I get new employees, I'm going to treat them like crap because I was treated like crap and I get mine. And I think, again, I'm just going to, as a disclaimer, as I say in a lot of videos where I comment about things in Korea, not 100% of the people are like this. Everyone is different to a degree. However, this is kind of a norm, or at least a trend that I've been able to pick up throughout my time living here. And there are Koreans that will agree with me on these trends. So I think it's a bit of that. We had to suffer through quarantine. You're coming here and you're acting like it's a joke and having people drop off gifts. We didn't go to funerals, we didn't go to birthday parties, and you're doing it, so that is not okay. And a little bit of what happened with the Sam Ochiri thing, people are probably, they see Josh and Gabie, and maybe as an employee they're working 50, 60, 70 hours a week. Maybe they're only making $20,000 a year, and they're working their butt off, and they know that they're not going to be able to make it, climb the ladder, and that's just the reality of it. And then they see someone like Josh and Gabie, beautiful couple, they're making YouTube videos, they're interviewing the Avengers, they're just eating delicious food and getting paid. I think he gets paid in all the YouTube stuff, I think he's getting paid about $1 million a year. People think, oh, he's won the lottery, she's won the lottery, they've got the golden ticket, and I'm upset with them, but I can't say anything. Oh, you did something wrong. Now I'm unleashing all of my wrath and jealousy and rage. This happened with the mukbang people, who are not foreigners. They're Korean, the people that eat. They were getting sponsorship. They didn't disclose that. Once that was exposed, they were done. They had to shut down their channel, or they chose to shut it down. Many people unsubbed from their channel. So that's the first point, what people are mad. Now the second one, it seems to be a little bit unclear. I think they're just allegations of Josh and Gabie not paying tax. I don't even think they're liable to pay tax in Korea, because they're no longer residents of Korea. Only the US and a few other unknown, very tiny countries, those are the only countries where, if you're a citizen of those countries, so I'm a citizen of the US, even if I leave the US and am now a resident of Korea, which is true, I'm a resident of Korea, citizen of the US, I still have to report my income to the US, and if I make more than a certain amount, I have to pay the US, which is, at first I thought it's absolutely crazy and unfair, but I'm starting to understand now. If I get in trouble in Korea somehow with the law or whatnot, I can always have the embassy, the US embassy, to depend on. So I kind of understand why, even though I'm no longer a resident of the US, I still get benefits from being a citizen, and therefore tax is still owed. Now, the same is not true for Korea. If you're a Korean citizen and you move abroad, you no longer have to pay tax as long as you're not a resident anymore. And Josh is a UK national. Gabie, I was reading online that there's something about she was born in Argentina and whatnot, but I don't really know all the details. Apparently I was reading the Korean Wikipedia page, the wiki tree about this, and we have so many Sherlock Holmes downloading the video and analyzing everything, and wait, she said this, but I checked her family history and she said that, just absolutely going insane with all this investigation for something that, okay, they screwed up. It might be a big deal. You might be super pissed, but the amount of anger, I don't know if the amount of anger is really justified. Anyway, they're accused of not paying taxes properly, but again, I don't think that's an issue because they're not residents of Korea anymore, so therefore they wouldn't have to pay any taxes. So I don't really think that's an issue. And the third thing is this health insurance. So the wife came back to Korea to get the health procedure done, and there's a loophole where Korean citizens, they pretty much live in other countries, and then, for example, the healthcare in the US is absolutely atrocious. It's absolutely terrible. You'll go bankrupt, it's horrible, whatever. So many Korean citizens who are now residents of the US, they don't want to give up their Korean citizenship, or maybe they have dual citizenship, so they can come back to Korea to get the whatever medical procedure they need, and they spend all that time not paying health insurance, but they come back and they're able to get that medical treatment. So if that is true, which I think it might be true, one, aren't you rich enough to get it done in the UK where you're at? Two, the UK already has universal healthcare, so it shouldn't be that big of a deal. And three, this is not towards them, but I think that all Korean citizens, if you live in a foreign country, if you're not a Korean resident, if you're a Korean citizen but not a Korean resident, I either think, one, you are no longer able to receive healthcare from Korea, so you can't fly back and receive healthcare, or two, and this would be great for the government to bring in more tax money, is even if you're a citizen, even if you are a resident of another country but still a Korean citizen, I think you should still have to pay the Korean government tax. So I'm saying that they should mimic the US system, and all Korean citizens living abroad, they should be obligated to pay tax. So we don't have this healthcare issue anymore because they'll be paying tax. Anyway, so yeah, they got accused, and then Gabie took all her videos off her YouTube channel and came out with an apology, and then Josh came out with an apology, and then similar to Sam Ochiri, we had all of these linguistic detectives, analyzing the Korean, because there's Korean and English. They're analyzing the nuances, and they're giving all these analytical reports saying how they said one thing in Korean and one thing in English, and it's like, come on, we know a lot of Koreans speak English. You'd have to be pretty stupid to think that they are trying to trick the Koreans, say one thing to the Koreans and say one thing to English speakers, when they know that Koreans can speak English. But who knows? Maybe they were that stupid, because apparently they were that stupid to make this stupid quarantine party. Again, I don't agree with what they did. I think it was absolutely stupid to do it and film it. And for a so-called expert on Korea, you think that he should have known that this was just a bad idea, did it anyway. Maybe they are dumb enough that they are trying to appease the Korean audience while saying something to the other English audience, or more likely, they just wrote it in whatever language they know. They spoke it in English and wrote it in Korean the best that they could, and don't look too much into the differences. That's just my take on it. So at the end of the day, I'm not, defending Josh or Gabie. I don't know them. Don't really like their content. Never plan to meet them. I'm not on Team Foreigner. I'm almost always on Team Korea. I agree. Trump says Mexico doesn't send their breast. Trump says that Mexico does not send their best and brightest to the U.S. I think that Western countries like the U.S., the U.K., and Australia, they don't send Korea their best and brightest. We got a lot of people here that are stupid. They don't learn Korean. They're just sleeping around with girls. They're just teaching and drinking. And I personally don't think we need those kinds of foreigners in Korea. I'm all up for limiting the amount of foreigners that come here and restricting it only to top tier foreigners, or foreigners that are making an effort to learn Korean, or actually going to be adding to the future of Korea. With that being said, I just wanted to say that I'm not Team Foreigner. However, I do, despite the faults that they've done, Josh and Gabie, I think people might be going a little bit too overboard with all the linguistic analysis and all the Sherlock Holmes, Detective Conan type of analysis on where they were born and whatnot. They made the 14-day quarantine is a little bit too strict. They knew that coming in. They did something stupid. They apologized. And I think the most important thing here is that, this is the last thing I'm going to say. I know I only intended this to be a few minutes, as always, but it always goes on to 20 minutes. I think that what Josh was able to achieve is something that the Korean government has been doing for almost 30 years, and that they've ultimately wanted to achieve. I've heard that, in the early 1990s when Jurassic Park came out, the government at the time, they saw how much money Jurassic Park brought in, and they compared that profit to how many Hyundai cars they would have to sell. And they said, well, what the heck? Why the hell are we doing this? Why don't we just export our culture? And so for the past 30 years, that's exactly what they've been doing. And they've been very successful at doing it to especially Southeast Asia, Thailand, Philippines. Always number one is K-drama and K-pop. It's being exported to Japan. Now people don't really care about J-pop. They only care about K-pop. And in China, of course, massive market, people there love boy band groups, girl groups, and dramas as well. But they were never really able to crack into the Western market. In 2012, Gangnam Style came out, which kind of caught people's attention. That's what I consider the pinnacle of when Korean culture started getting into the Western markets. Then 2017, 2018 was the start of BTS and Blackpink getting to the US markets, with them now having charts or reaching their songs, hitting the Billboard charts. I don't know much about those groups, but I know they were able to hit very high up there, if not number one. But, food as well was never really, Korean food started to become more popular. But what Josh did was he was making videos introducing Westerners in the UK and, maybe elsewhere to Korean dishes and food. And it went all the way up to famous videos or famous people such as, from the Avengers. There's videos with other actors. There's videos with athletes. And these videos get a lot of attention, which spreads the love of her Korean culture, and it spreads the food, and more people want to try it, and more people know about Korea, and more people want to go to Korea, and less people confuse Koreans with Chinese with Japanese. And that's what the Korean government has been wanting to accomplish for 30 years. And thanks to Josh, or the government's thanks to Josh, that's exactly what's been happening. So, did he make a mistake? Yeah. Did he also do a lot of good for Korea? Yeah. Obviously I'm going to let you guys could have your own opinion. Like I said, I personally don't care. I'm not a fan, never will be, probably won't meet him. Don't really care. Let me know what you guys think, though, in the comments below. Are people overreacting? Are people underreacting? Should people give him a break? Should he get canceled? Let me know what you think. As always, thanks for watching, and I will catch you next time.